Make sure I have myself unmuted this time. Good morning, good morning. Welcome to or back to my channel. I will be honest, I woke up sick. So if I sound a little funny or if I'm a lot, um, my boys were sick and then they were fine. So we went sledding the other day. I thought I was going to be fine, and it turns out maybe I'm not. So how is I would complain about the snow, but I think most of you guys are Tennesseans and you guys would probably think, girl, sit down, please. So, but it is chilly outside. Um, it has been a while. I've been coming back on slowly, getting back into things and kind of picking up where I left off on a few cases, such as the Gainesboro Four. Um, And I kind of want to start. I know that there are people are probably popping on there that don't have any idea what I mean when I say Gainesboro Four. So as we talk, I will kind of maybe speak on a little things that a lot of you probably already know and have heard, but just bear with me, okay? And because we do have some things that we haven't talked about. So just bear with me here. Let me pop this up here. Yeah, it's really cold outside. I got a scratchy throat and I can't breathe. It's been crazy. Okay, so I want to start up around the vigil time because that kind of coincides on when I kind of disappeared. I had every intention of going to the vigil in May 2022. I had been going through something and, I had not left my house in quite some time. No grocery stores, doctor's appointments, work, nothing. I didn't realize it was a problem until I wanted to leave. Logging on here and helping families. And in a way, I was leaving my house, just being in this atmosphere, And then shortly after the vigil, I kind of disappeared. I was embarrassed and many other things, but I needed to get help. I am back to working, leaving my house, getting everything back lost during it all. Right before I started my page, my husband and I placed our third son with his parents now. And as it is, as I sit here today, it still came with a lot of aftermath that I did not take care of. And it all came to a head with me trying to go to Tennessee. And it's something, as you can tell, I will always regret. But I thank Gainesboro and these families because as much as I help them with them coming on here and doing this, they were helping me realize. And I never thought I would be away this long. But I'm back and I'm here. And I was not scared off as many reach out to me. They were worried that I was. And I thank you all for caring so much. And I thank everybody for just being so patient, and especially where, so much patience has already been given. You know what I mean? It's just, I appreciate it. So with that being said, nevertheless, Gainesboro Four Vigil went on for those who did show up in support of the families and many of those who loved Joseph, Lacey, TJ, and Elizabeth. Those who could not make it there were there in heart. The vigil was held smack dab right in the middle of Gainesboro, y'all, like the town, okay? And officials pretended like they did not see them. As I can imagine, there were t-shirts, many loved ones gathered right there. It would have been hard to miss, I can imagine. The mayor talked about popping up. I remember very, very much. He never showed up. They just turned their heads. Not even gonna lie, that put a little sting in my heart. I guess he had something else to do that day. And that's kind of where, things were on this side, around that time, by the time, and stick with me, other things unfolded. I wasn't really going live enough, and we will get there. I just want to kind of go back a little bit and talk about some of the things that were kind of happening around the time and kind of behind the scenes. And so just bear with me a little bit, and we will get there. So I made the first post about Gainesboro on February 9th, 2022. It was the anniversary. And then early on in 2022, some of the families got a much needed sit down with the DA office after coming here and speaking with all of us on February 19th, 2022. They ended up having a few sit downs come from it. I covered that in its own videos, and as we go on, we will hint back on a lot of these things as well. The biggest takeaway from them speaking with the DA is, after reviewing some of the cases, to them it felt like, they came back, it's looking like someone did it. And according to what the parents relayed to me, and to me, that's another entity that went against the narrative that the TBI has tried to set. Now, remember the tunnel visions, the sheriff's office, right? How they started investigating it as a homicide, as any season. That's what you do. You have 4 victims, a survivor, and a trailer gone, so on fire, gone. But it's just crazy to me that even back then, do I believe that there were some people in Gainesboro that were okay with the way things were going and it not being invested? Yeah, but there were people in that town that I very much believe that were doing their job. So it's just crazy to me where, the Gainesboro sat and the TBI sat back then, and now here, flash forward, we are with the DA saying what he said, and then TBI is still pushing out the narrative that it was just a horrific accident, and no shred of evidence has ever come about to fully support that enough to close the case. But we'll get there. So the last sit down that they had before coming here and all of this was in 2009, according to the recording that we have. Before 2009, it was a series of phone calls, especially every year around the anniversary. Keep it in mind. Given the interview with some of the parents we did, and you can go back and watch, they were treated horribly, threatened even to let it go or they will pin it and close it, and it's crazy. During the sit down in 2009, we learned that many people were not questioned. I myself had many important witnesses, never questioned by the TBI, reach out to me. TBI took over the case same day it happened, February 9th, 2002. Many who have stated they would go on record if someone could be trusted to look into it all. Back in 2009, in the recording, he confirms that many were still not questioned then, including the survivor. That many things were not done, and many more to blame as far as botched investigation, including the ME, Dr. Harlan, who we know, if you search my TC Spotlight page, and we will go over it again, was a whack. He was even indicted around the time. It's just a whole big thing. And when I made that post about Dr. Harlan, I was not expecting all the victims' families that this man has touched to come forward. And I was shocked. Wild lies and accusations fueled by the sheriff's department in Gainesboro, according to the agent on the recording speaking on the TBI's behalf. It was confirmed the case was still open, that they were actively working on it. Many of those people were, in fact, never questioned. They have reached out to me, making themselves known. It's crazy. Flash forwards to Tuesday, May 17th, 2022. In the angel of a man, journalist Dennis Ferrier started taking over many of the cases that we've heard here. And Gainesboro Four was one of them. What he found out through his research was that the case has been closed since 2007, 2 years prior to the 2009 recording. None of the parents knew. I can only imagine how they felt. I know it felt like a spear through my heart. My head was reeling, especially after knowing what I heard from the man on the recording. And so many people. It's crazy. So why have a pair of parents been denied anything related to this case? Things that if the case is closed, they should be privy to, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. But the impression that they've always had due to the case being is cold but open, so they could not have that information. And why hadn't anyone, now as we started this whole case back up, between the phone calls here and now, in the recent sit-downs, yes, plural, did nobody mention that detail? During one of the sit-downs here recently, the parents bring up, the survivor and rumored polygraph, taking the statements made. And in the recording, it is very much denied that there was ever one given, let alone 4. Just more lies spread from the sheriff's office. Well, we found out through the parents in the DA's office that there were in fact 2 given. And according to them, one was inconclusive and one was failed. This prompted the survivor came in back in 2022, re-questioned, still not knowing any more than he did that horrific night back in 2002. Now, around this time, allegedly, someone incarcerated who was not Cookie, though we will get back to that here shortly, reached out and had people tell them to leave the survivor alone or they will beat their ass when they got out. And it makes you wonder. It makes you question. I was not expecting that name at the end of that, alleged threat put out there. I was not expecting that name to pop out there. So it just makes you question. Now, during the Dennis Ferrier interview, at the end, we see the, new DA, Dr. James Lawson, appear on screen telling us all that if, we had any information, okay? Now, parents, and quite frankly, if you go to my TC page or search Gainesboro Four, a majority of the people who were there during the so-called TBI investigation have let us know, and in my own opinion, agree that the TBI they were never interested in finding out what happened to Lacey, TJ, Elizabeth, and Joseph. I mean, that can be proven in the fact that the head of the TBI at the time allowed the parents to all walk through all around the crime scene later that same day. Even more so when they removed, leveled, and rolled out of Gainesboro by Thursday. It was gone. You would not even know that there was a trailer sitting there, according to accounts. Case closed in their eyes. And that's all. That's how I feel. That's my opinion. Not one shred of solid evidence to support their accidental theory that they've been pushing for over 2 decades. So as we've gained information here now, and all of the people willing to step out of the shadows, it's who can we trust? You know, my feels, call me naive or whatever here. I, my head tilted. I had a little hope when um, I seen James Lawson appear on that screen. I did. But if he's not going to be the person that we can trust, I do think that the Cold Case Coalition would be the perfect people to get involved. I think Gainesboro Four definitely qualifies, and I want to try to get their attention. And I want to know if you'll help me. I don't want to harass them, but go check their page out, go scope them out, and let me know what you think. I can think of a few cases that I've come across here that I think that if they know about them, they would be very interested in knowing more. So back to DA Lawson. He appears on screen, and in the end, and the gist of it is, if you have any information, please call. Did anyone call? Did anyone give any information? You don't have to answer that, of course. But the answer is yes. Yes, there was. There was someone who not only did call, but went in, gave an official statement. This person was brave and would stand in front of a jury, spoke with no conviction, said, hook me up to a lie detector test, they said. One of the biggest things that the TBI did was mark everything as rumor or hearsay. Nothing direct enough. Well, I have spoken to plenty of direct witnesses, not this witness, but those who have spoken with me. Not to mention the many witnesses who stepped right up when it happened. All in all, it felt like it fell to deaf ears and labeled rumor, nothing less. The witness went in and made a statement, nonetheless. According to parents and conversations with the DA, it sounded like some real moves were about to be made. Hopes were lifted slightly. Between me and the parents, there was no way they could not hear them now. Well, that was a year ago. And we sat and we waited and we swore that if they followed through, we would give them everything. We would encourage more to step out of the shadows. But to date, they haven't. So around, they had the vigil, and a little after that, one of the parents reached out and sent me a screenshot. I can't even remember what even prompted them to look, actually. But they reached out and they sent me the screenshot. June 13th, 2023, Cookie had a parole meeting, and the family reached out and showed me. They called either the DA office or the TBI, and I can't remember right now off the top of my head, but was told there was no way he would be free. When they called me, I told them, of course, they were going to let him out. We waited and checked every day, and it was pending until June 15, 2022. It changed to paroled. I had not been going live by then, like I mentioned earlier, but we were very much aware behind the scenes after his release. Many people blocked me. Some went as far as deleting comments and posts. A very credible source. Close to the investigation and in the beginning had been coordinating with me since the parents first came and spoke, even more so after revealing some of the things mentioned in the recording. They would check in over the time we had started this and ask how things were, if I hadn't been on or reached out. They would pop in and ask how I was, until I informed them of Cookie's possible getting paroled. They hadn't heard, so I had sent them the proof. And to this day, I have never gotten a response from that source. I tried reaching out and have been left on red. Honestly, just sends shivers down my spine. Like, the biggest thing, TBI stress, was everyone was wrong about being afraid of him, and that he talked big, but he was harmless. You tell me. So from the time we started this all here, all sides have come out. I have never shoved down a narrative. I have always opened up my door to come speak. I have never, if you want to say I'm a liar I've never deleted anything. I've never tried to shut down. I've never, ever. I've offered my door. I've offered to listen. I've offered for them to come speak, because if I'm going to talk about them, they have every right. I like I said, I have had just about everybody reach out for me from all sides, including those to defend Cookie and the survivor. I have gotten messages and emails, not threatening, but pretty much telling me to drop it. That allegedly Cookie would be getting a hold of me when he got out. Now, I cannot say that he said this for sure, but to date, he has not. And I have waited. I would love to speak with him, just like I would love to speak with the survivor. I've offered for him to come speak many times. I have offered anyone from any side to come speak in private or on screen. One of the things talked about in the recording, with the agent back in 2009, that from my understanding and out of everything, was that an alibi was in fact never confirmed, or even, I don't even know what his was, confirmed or not. What was he doing that night? And that's, I have my own questions myself, and I would create a safe space for him to come here. And for the survivor who came forward with different stories they've claimed to hear from me, between both of these men, there are many questions that I have. Either way, I will continue to talk about Gainesboro. And when I do, just remember this, because I do know that there's families and lives and all of that. And I do try to do this in the most respectful way possible. This is where the TBI has left it. This is what everyone still thinks over 2 decades later, because the lack of investigation done by the TBI. I offer both of them to come speak because we spoke about them. They have every right to come speak their piece. So as mad as everyone wants to get at that YouTuber, just remember who really stirred things up. Now, I will be recapping lightly. When I first aired the parents' interview, I was not expecting the response I got. So many loved ones of Elizabeth, Lacey, TJ, and Joseph really stepped up for them. I was both overwhelmed and heartbroken. It was like I took a pin and popped a balloon, and all the air held for so long finally got released. They needed to be heard. No thanks to the TBI who shut them up, in my humble opinion. I feel like all of that was for them, and we gained a lot of information, talked about a lot of things, and held back on some things. This time around, we are really going to hit on just what the TBI did not do for these kids, things they kept from the families. We have the autopsy reports, mixed with the recording we have, is the biggest pieces of evidence we have. The families were never given the x-ray results. Many of them didn't even know one occurred until we heard it in the recording and we spoke about it. They were taken to Cooksville before Nashville autopsies. It was very clear in the recording that what they found that they found something in one of the kids in those x-rays. It was noted, but nothing was ever done to check what it was. For all we know, it is still right where the x-ray found it. I took down the recording lives I did. It was more of a reaction video, and I just didn't want that. I'm redoing it, and I'm about, it's 2 hours, about halfway through. I've gone through and noted every time, Harlan and his findings were mentioned, Cookie and his statements, where they talked about the survivor and so on, that way I can break them down in their own videos. So for instance, like the autopsy versus the recording. And in that segment, I pinpoint out every single time Dr. Harlan's mentioned anything he didn't do, anything he says he did, anything to that nature that we can go back and put up against the autopsy. Because for instance, this whole thing was based on these kids were so drunk. They were, it was an accident. And it's crazy, but it was an accident. They were too drunk. They were asleep. There was no way they could have, and if you look at the autopsy, they were barely drunk. 0.08, 0.09, something like that. And according to the recordings, they should have had they were all about Xanax and alcohol. But then you talk to some of the families and like that autopsy is shit, because I know my kids should have had weed in their system, and there was no, there's just so much. So that's what I want to do. That's how I want to go about it, because there's so much jam packed into that recording. And I want to take it and compare it to, Cookie and his alibi. I want to go through and pick out every part they talk about his, alibi and try to figure it out, And I think that would be a better way to go about that. So yes, a lot I want to do. So with that being said, join me as we slow down and come through this, kind of like how the TBI should have. So I hope you guys have a wonderful, I started typing out what I want to say to make sure, see if it'll make things easier. And I did not even notice anybody was in chat. It's so early. But I'll message you. I'm going to get off here. I got to get around for work. I thank everybody for watching and tuning in. Like I said, I will be back on. I am almost done going through the recording, and then I'm going to just highlight, color code Nate, so that way I know exactly, we'll bring up the recording and we'll know exactly where to go. And give a little bit more order to it. And kind of simplify it down a little bit. So you guys have a wonderful day. Thank you for being here, and I will talk to you later.